This is Steven Crowder. He's a far-right YouTube commentator. He put out an episode addressing a bunch of major controversies happening in the political sphere right now. He's about to tell us why he was right about Hunter Biden's laptop and why everybody should believe what he says, even though he has no evidence for it. This is part 5. If you haven't seen the other parts, don't sweat it. This stands independently of the rest. I'll provide context if it's missing. In the previous episodes, he talked to Alex Jones about an interview he did with Kanye West. And my God, did it get weird. Now he's going to tell us that you should trust conspiracy theorists because they got some stuff right. Doesn't matter if they didn't have evidence. Doesn't matter if they were justified in making the claims they made. What matters is that they took 15 random guesses and 1 or 2 were right by chance. Anyways, let's give this a listen and see why he thinks people should believe him about the Hunter Biden laptop story. Let's get into it.
Said, we simply need more information. They could have asked us. We had the laptop on this show. Hey, they could have asked Giuliani. They could have asked the FBI. Only the FBI raided Giuliani's apartment and took everything but the laptop.
Okay, I have no idea what he's talking about right now. I really, truly, honestly, to the bottom of my heart, do not believe there's a laptop. I'm willing to be proven wrong on that. If we actually get to see the laptop, great. I'm willing to believe that the laptop is real when we finally get to see it. Until then, I'm sorry, it's just too far-fetched. It's a ridiculous story. And it seems like the kind of thing, it seems like the gift that would keep on giving. Seems like the kind of thing that Russia could just keep pumping data out about. Russia could keep hacking his accounts, stealing his information, and continue claiming that it came from the laptop. Trust me, if there was a laptop, all the data that was on there is released now. All the bad things they could get their hands on has been released to the public. I'm sure of it. Matter of fact, if the laptop were real, look me straight in the face and tell me Donald Trump wouldn't have gotten his hands on it and released all of the information himself personally because he wanted the clout involved in it. That is the exact type of thing that Trump would have done. I don't believe for a second that there's even a laptop. I think people are hacking Hunter Biden's accounts or hacked his accounts previously and are using the laptop as the framing device that they can claim it came from, and people will believe it.
Deliberately avoided finding the relevant information because they knew that it wouldn't, of course, support their narrative, all the while censoring the story for the entire world. This happened on all major platforms.
Yeah.
We need more information.
It did not happen on all major platforms. There was not like massive censorship or whatever. They prevented the laptop story from going viral in their algorithms until they fact-checked whether or not it was real or hacked or stolen or whatever else. When they determined what they determined, they released its hold on the possible virality. And everybody was still perfectly allowed to talk about it to their heart's content, and most definitely did. So this is all just completely made up. And besides that, who gives a shit about Hunter Biden and his laptop? Who cares? Why does anybody care? I certainly don't. He's not involved in the administration in any way. He has nothing to do with anything at all. There's no evidence that Joe Biden was connected to any of this. None. Now, there's conjecture about his connection to it or whatever. You can make all kinds of speculative claims that you want, but there is no evidence that Joe Biden was involved in any of this to any degree, or that Hunter Biden is working with him or any of that garbage. No evidence of it. You're just making shit up. So anyways, I couldn't possibly care less about this story. I really could not. It means absolutely nothing to me. And it's weird that people like Steven Crowder continue to devote as much time and energy to this story as they do. Why does he care so much?
This happened on all major platforms.
Yeah.
We need more information. Why didn't they go get it? They could have made 2 phone calls. We did.
Yeah, well, and my problem is twofold with
I don't believe the laptop's even real. It seems completely fabricated.
this, right? And so one of them, I'm going to ask the guys in Mission Control to pull up when they ran the New York Times story on Donald Trump's leaked tax returns, right? Mm-hmm. That fit right into this policy. Like you said, is the policy applied equally?
That's correct. Yeah, it does. But did the New York Times have their thing removed, their post? Did they even post it to Twitter is the question, first of all. And second, did Twitter's policy exist at the time. This is the kind of thing that these people love to do. They love to find fringe examples that didn't really fit into the situation at all for one reason or another, because when it was released, that policy didn't exist or whatever. And then they scream about it being, about being treated unfairly. That is the Republican way. Scream about being treated unfairly 24/7. That's basically their whole MO. But aside from that, the New York Times didn't need Twitter to, spread their story. The New York Times is the New York Times. They can spread their own stories. Oh, and Twitter did actually apply this rule fairly across the board. There was another hacked materials situation where Twitter took a story down that contained leaked names, phone numbers, and addresses of police officers that was released by somebody on the left. So I don't know who, Unicorn, right? I have no idea who released it. They removed that because it was hacked materials too. So it is actually fairly adjudicated or fairly done across the political spectrum.
Donald Trump had been famous for saying, I am never releasing my tax returns, so much so that he was sued over and over and over again to get them. And all of a sudden, the New York Times runs a piece. Here are Donald Trump's leaked, read that, hacked tax returns, right? And they ran it, nothing.
Now, that's illegal.
Okay, the New York Times ran that story on their website. Yeah. Did they run it on Twitter, though? And did Twitter leave it up? And did they have a policy at the time saying they'd take down hacked materials? I mean, I don't know if any of this applies at all, but they're looking for these weird little fringe cases to make people feel like they're persecuted.
Illegal.
That's illegal.
That's illegal. Hunter Biden was so high that he didn't pick up his computer
laptops
from Geek Squad. And I know it was a computer repair shop. By the way, the guy who owned the computer repair shop said, I'm available for interview.
Anybody want
I have the receipt. Anyone want to talk with me about it? I will declare this to be true under oath. No one from Twitter reached out?
Yeah. But here's the other part of that. When he...
They did, actually. They all did. But it doesn't, just because this guy was real, doesn't mean that he didn't get this stuff from Russia. Hell, doesn't mean that a Russian agent didn't drop the laptop off after stealing it from Hunter Biden. There are all kinds of issues. Hunter Biden, from my understanding, didn't say that he ever went to this computer repair shop in the first place. When asked, is this your laptop? He says, I don't know. Maybe it is my laptop. Hunter Biden did a lot of dealings in Ukraine. He was over there doing all kinds of stuff. It's possible that maybe he left his laptop somewhere one of these times, or maybe he left it in his hotel room or something, and Russia came along, sent an agent in, and stole the laptop at the time. Who knows? There are all kinds of possibilities. Why are these people convinced that one of the main adversaries of the United States that spreads propaganda like this didn't manufacture this whole thing when Hunter Biden had dealings over there in the first place? It just blows me away that they're taking everybody at their word in this situation when they purport to be so skeptical in every other situation.
He just said in the quote there, he's like, is there a way for us to hide behind this policy so that we can do what we already want to do in the first place?
Right.
But I didn't see that. He says that somebody wrote that to somebody else, that they want to hide behind the policy. I didn't see anything about that. Was that in the leaked Twitter stuff? What's he talking about right now?
That's how he said it, not, is this something that fits in the policy? Let's look at it objectively and make sure that...
Oh, I see. He's reading into it. He's changing the verbiage to make it seem more like what he would have expected the context to be. I see. So he's just making this up.
Everything's okay. No. We want to ban this story. We want to get rid of this. Can we hide behind the language in this?
Well, there was, and by the way, there was a Democrat representative who had a problem with this. So it was Ro Khanna, who was, by the way, connected to, Ro Khanna obviously was connected with the Democrat Party and contacted Twitter's lawyer, one of their top lawyers, that Vijaya Gad. I'm pronouncing it incorrectly, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter because she no longer matters. Now,
thank God.
This is what this person said.
Okay, I have no idea what they're talking about right now.
Was concerned about the First Amendment, said, hope you're well, Vijaya. This throttling of the laptop story seems...
Why are they obsessed with pronouncing people's names incorrectly, honestly?
...a violation of the First Amendment principles. If there's a hack of classified information or other information that could expose a serious war crime and the New York Times was to publish it, I think that the New York Times should have that right. And this is even assuming that it was hacked, which it wasn't.
Right.
So to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding...
It's a hacked or stolen materials policy. And... the data on the laptop was stolen from Hunter Biden, most definitely. The guy had a right to own the laptop past that point, not the data on it.
Regarding a presidential candidate seems not in keeping of the principles of New York Times versus Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced he didn't do anything wrong. Now, this means that there are some people on the left who understood the gravity of this.
Yeah.
Here's something that really I would say is most disconcerting to me. There are Republicans out there. There are people who want to tear down the conservative movement, who are trying to say that if you're a conservative and you're being a drama queen about the First Amendment, you don't understand the First Amendment. This is a private company. They can do whatever they. How often have we heard that before?
All the time.
Oh, that's true. It is a private company that can do whatever they want. They don't have to platform you. You don't have a right to their platform. That's true.
Every single time something comes up from somebody on the right saying, we've been deplatformed, we have been shadow banned, we've been demonetized, it's like, well, sorry, you guys said free market, individual companies can do whatever they want, right? Right?
Right.
We're like, guys, that you.
Yeah, they spent the past, I don't know, 15, 20, 30 years trying to give companies extra rights that they probably weren't entitled to. They tried to give companies the ability to spend money on politicians. They tried to give them the ability to lobby Congress and control this and do that and all that. And, you know, the left didn't like that. I certainly didn't like that. I wasn't the biggest fan of it. But here we are. They gave companies a whole bunch of power, and now they're complaining about it, right? Now they're complaining about how it's going for them. I'm sorry, you don't get to complain after you manufactured this situation. But aside from that, companies most definitely do have a First Amendment right to express themselves however they want. That's just part of the law. That's how it goes, whether they like that or not.
You know that's not what's going on.
So you've got Bill Kristol, you've got David French, you've got Jonah Goldberg, and Bill Kristol may be just the worst Republican ever.
He is absolutely the worst.
I mean, you might find someone who maybe
French
crapped his
close.
pants or something in the Senate a long time ago, but I don't think they're going to get much worse.
In the coat room and didn't tell anybody?
So David French said that what Twitter did had nothing to do with the First Amendment, and this is what you're hearing. And by the way, hit the like button because the algorithms tell you that we're dead on YouTube, and hit the like button if you strongly did.
Again, this is like his persecution complex once again. It's all about being persecuted, isn't it? Hit the like button because they hate us. They're out to get us constantly. They're trying to hurt us.
Disagree with the idea that this is not a First Amendment issue. It directly affected the outcome of an election. Anyone who is telling you otherwise either is lying or hasn't done their research.
It has not directly affected the outcome of an election. It's completely made up. Removing Hunter Biden's revenge images that somebody released to Twitter against his will didn't affect an election. You live in a fantasy land if you believe that. Seriously.
We now know that back then Twitter was lying. They knew that it wasn't hacked.
No, it wasn't hacked. It's a hacked or stolen materials policy. How did this go right over the guy's head? Hacked or stolen materials. The guy had a right to the data on the guy had a right to the laptop, assuming that this is even true, not a right to the data on the laptop.
At best, they thought it was likely not hacked, but they decided not to do their due diligence. At worst, they knew beyond any shadow of a doubt that it wasn't hacked, and they decided to throttle it anyway. Yeah. So this is David French.
Just completely made up. Do you think that Steven Crowder knows what he's doing is complete bullshit? Do you think he's aware that he's lying and propagandizing to further his own goals? Or do you think that he's really completely oblivious? He has no idea what's going on around him. Let me know what you think in the comments.
This is just shamelessly wrong. A private political campaign is not the government, meaning that at the time, Joe Biden, because Joe Biden was reaching, his officials were reaching out, his team were reaching out to Twitter
Donald
officials.
Trump was in office.
Right. A political party is not the government. Hold on a second. The political party that controls the House chambers?
No, the political party... Okay. What was meant by political party was actually political campaign. Joe Biden. Joe Biden does not control the House chambers, first of all. The Joe Biden campaign contacted Twitter. That had nothing to do with the Democratic Party. And also, it was just asking them to respect their own policies and take down revenge images of a candidate's son. This was most definitely political interference. Posting pictures from this supposed laptop that supposedly came from Hunter Biden, that was definitely attempted political interference. And they're complaining that Joe Biden's trying to get revenge images of his son taken down. That's the political interference? He's got such a smug, punchable face, doesn't he? Is it just me? Look at this dude's smug, punchable face right here.
Okay. A private company is not the government. It is if it's doing the government's bidding.
Right.
Then
A private company is the government if it's doing the government's bidding, except that it wasn't doing the government's bidding. So his argument is that Joe Biden's campaign leading up to the 2020 election requested, this is really getting in the weeds, and that's what he wants. He wants this to get into the weeds. He's arguing that Joe Biden's political campaign requesting Twitter take down nude images of his son that were posted without his consent, he's saying that that's political interference. And he's saying that it's the government doing that because Joe Biden is part of the Republican Party. I'm sorry, he's part of the Democrat Party, the Democrats. Sorry, let me say that again. Because Joe Biden is part of the Democratic Party, that means that this is a government action because he's part of the Democratic Party. Well, you know, not for nothing, I was registered as a Democrat for like years. And does that mean that literally every single thing that I do as a representative of the Democrats? That's the logic here. That's what he's saying. If you are the member of a political party, everything that you do represents that political party. Joe Biden was not acting on behalf of a political party. It's completely made up.
It says this isn't a systematic violation of the First Amendment. The First Amendment isn't implicated at all. This was not.
That's correct. The government was not pushing for anybody to whatever. And aside from that, it was Joe Biden requesting that Twitter do something that is in line with their policies. Revenge is against Twitter policies, and it's also a felony. It's against the law for somebody to do that. So whoever posted that stuff of Hunter Biden could very easily go to jail for posting pictures of him nude. But all of that is overlooked because they desperately want you to believe that the Hunter Biden laptop story is an example of like secret dealings that are like twisted and evil and wrong, and Joe Biden violating First Amendment and blah, blah, blah. They want to make this into something that it's not. And they'll do anything they can to reframe it and make it seem like a government censorship issue when it's just not.
Not in any way a private company making a decision on their own. This was a private company doing the bidding, by the way, flying in the face of all factual information that we had available to us in order to favor one political party who, by the way, controlled substantial portions of the government and were seeking to control all portions of the government.
It wasn't a political party trying to control this stuff. It was Joe Biden asking Twitter to take down pictures of his son that were posted without his consent. That's it. That's all it was.
Every coup that has happened throughout history has often historically been militarily, right? Someone has some kind of a coup through guerrillas, right? Or they somehow maybe subvert the military, get them to turn on the current.
Okay, no to all of that. There are different types of coups. This is actually a really complicated conversation. There are all kinds of different types of coups that take place. A military coup is one, sure.
Current leaders. Right now, we're in an age of information guerrilla warfare. And so if the opposing party, the Donald Trump, right, we're talking about, of course, Democrats, Pelosi was the speaker still at that time, if they can get Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube to do their bidding, that's the equivalent to a military.
No. That's the equivalent to a military coup, he says. They weren't getting him to do their bidding. God, this is the most ridiculous propagandistic bullshit I've ever heard in my entire life. I had no idea that Steven Crowder was this bad. I think I've maybe seen one or two episodes of his show in my life. This is insane.
Coup. You want to talk about insurrection? That's insurrection using the most powerful entities that exist on planet Earth. Bill Kristol, retweet.
They did not use the most powerful entities that exist on Earth to force Twitter to blah, 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 blah. All of this is completely made up.
An article, and he argued that MAGA trolls were just mad they couldn't post Hunter Biden pics. Jeez.
That's true. That's what was removed. Hunter Biden's pics. That's what was taken off. Is that why they're complaining? Is that why they're screaming about this? Like, what's the point otherwise?
By the way, I was mad that we couldn't post Hunter Biden pics, but that's not what this is about. He wrote, while normal human beings who denied Republicans their red wave were enjoying an epic sports weekend. Yeah, sports. I'm sure you know a lot about that, Billy. MAGA activists were getting riled up about leaked emails revealing the troll accounts were not allowed to post ill-gotten photos on a company platform. Hey, hold on a second, Bill Kristol. You claim to be, this is like the Anna Navarro. I was a Republican. Okay, so we get it. You're not pro-life. Okay, so we understand it. You don't like Donald Trump. But if you say you were a Republican and you say the party left you, do you mean to say that you were never on board with at least the tenets of the Republican Party in theory that believe that government should be limited, that government should not
Okay, that's an interesting question. The Republican Party does not believe that government should be limited. That's completely made up. It has been since day one. They don't believe in limited government. They never have. Libertarian Party, I think they probably believe in a limited government. Republican Party just uses it to their benefit. Let me show you an example of what I mean. Being pro-life and trying to force people into, the bedrooms of other people, that's not limited government. There are a billion examples of Republicans espousing positions, official policy positions that are not limited government, like at all, not even a little bit. This is Richard Spencer, famed neo-Nazi Republican, talking about free speech.
But as far as government regulation, yes, I think in the short term we would favor government regulation of speech, but long term, are we even pro-free speech?
No, of course not. But we have to use this platform in order.
So we're being radically honest here.
Yes, radically pragmatic. Yes. Yeah.
They were never in favor of free speech. They were never in favor of limited government or any of this stuff. They were in favor of benefiting themselves and their friends, doing everything that they could to further their own goals and push their own agendas, which is fine. Everybody has their own goals and agendas and ideas about how things should work or how it should be or whatever else. Just be honest about it. Don't lie about it. That's all I ask. But okay, let's keep listening to old Steven Crowder here talk about the values that Republicans have of limited government.
Infringe on personal liberties, right? That we believe at the very least. In other words, you were a Republican fiscally, so then you would still have to believe in as much decentralized power as possible. So how can you say, I was a Republican, but I'm really glad that the government, that the DNC coordinated with the world's biggest tech platforms to censor a story that would have changed the outcome of the election?
Okay, it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the election, and they didn't coordinate with blah, 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 blah. That's all completely made up.
And here's another guy, Jonah Goldberg, who may be a decent man. I've spent some time with him very, very briefly. Never been a fan of the way that he presents his points of view, namely because he thinks that he's funny. So according to him...
And Steven Crowder is actually funny, right? Is that what he believes?
The story, Hunter Biden, and this isn't just about Hunter Biden, by the way. It's about the implication and the corruption and the stranglehold that foreign entities could have on a potential future president who is now the former vice president. It wasn't just about Hunter smoking Parmesan cheese. That was the funny part. It was about the kickbacks to Joe Biden.
What kickbacks? What evidence do you have to believe that Joe Biden received kickbacks from anybody? There is no evidence to imply that. There is mention in these supposed emails, if these emails are even real, of the big guy, quote unquote, the big guy. Who is the big guy? Never specifies. But the people who originally wrote the email explicitly came out and said the big guy does not refer to Joe Biden. So they're completely making it up. It's all built on conjecture, built on speculation, built on nonsense.
It's about the liabilities that we would face as a country if someone is beholden to foreign entities, which we now somewhat see with Ukraine.
What? How could, I don't understand. Draw this line for me. How is Joe Biden or Hunter or anybody beholden to foreign entities? I don't understand. I'm not seeing the line here. What did they do that would make them beholden to these countries or whatever?
And amounts of cash pledged that seem to defy reason. So according to Jonah Goldberg, though, this story didn't matter at all because it wouldn't have changed anything, which is, of course, factually incorrect.
Prove it. If it's truly factually incorrect, prove it to me. Show me with evidence that it's factually incorrect. Dude is just straight up making this up.
Talk about A to C. They now think that if only the media had told us about the laptop at the time, as the kid yesterday was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory, that Trump would have won. But for the censoring of the New York Post, Trump would have won. And I think it's a preposterous counterfactual, but it's also it's impossible for me to refute. In the same way, I cannot refute that this bottle is keeping all the polar bears
refute
away.
That your testosterone levels are 25% lower.
Right. So what he's saying is it's something that is literally impossible to prove wrong. God, he's giving a great example here. I've never been approached by polar bears before. I've never been attacked by them. And interestingly enough, for the past 5 years, I've had an Apple Watch. Logic would dictate that my Apple Watch is a polar bear repellent, right? If I don't have this Apple Watch, it's possible, nay, likely, according to Steven Crowder, likely, according to his logic, that polar bears would attack me if I threw my Apple Watch away. That's the logic that he's employing right now. And that's what this guy is saying. I love it. He's absolutely correct. I love the point that he's making here. But what does Steven Crowder latch onto in this conversation? It's impossible to refute. That's the part he latched onto, ignoring the rest of the sentence, seemingly. Let's step back and listen to this whole thing again.
You've seen polar bears?
No, he's the 40.
It's impossible for me to refute. In the same way, I cannot refute that this bottle is keeping all the polar bears
Refute that your testosterone levels are 25% lower than your...
No, he's the 40%. He's what skews it to 25.
Dude, why are they talking through this entire thing? If you're going to talk, then pause it at least, right?
And this is just it has now become...
Can we lock the doors just in case?
it has been wrapped into a much larger narrative, and so when they hear disinformation, they say, oh, you mean like Hunter laptop, which actually turned out to be true.
Okay, couple of things. First off,
which actually turned out to be yeah, just cut off right there. The Hunter Biden laptop, I don't know what he means by it turned out to be true. I don't know who that guy was. I looked around all over the screen for like an answer to who he is. It just had a date on it. It didn't have his name. It didn't say where he was or who he was talking to or anything at all. And I have no reason to believe anything that this guy says. He did make a really good point about a water bottle keeping polar bears away or whatever. That's about it. That's about as far as it goes. Who was this guy? Why should I believe a word out of his mouth? And you can't say Hunter Biden laptop turned out to be true because it's such a broad subject. What about the Hunter Biden laptop turned out to be true? It's like one of the biggest conspiracy theories in U.S. politics today. One of. There are some QAnon ones that are pretty far out there. But this is really, really, really popular. There are an endless number of conspiracy theories that branch off from this single story. You know, Hunter Biden was giving Joe Biden 10% of the money, which what money and what evidence do they have to claim that? Hunter Biden hired prostitutes. Hunter Biden did all this other stuff, worked for Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. All of this stuff all comes from complete... Holy shit, did you guys see what just happened? Look at that. Look at the ground. Watch. You see the clouds? They're like whipping around. That's crazy. Anyways, you can't say the Hunter Biden laptop story is true because there isn't a single story. Anybody that says the Hunter Biden laptop story is true is completely full of shit. You can't possibly make that assertion. You say that, Owen, but one day you're riding the subway and then there's a polar bear waiting for you. That's true. As long as I have my Apple Watch, I think I'm safe, though.
It's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop. Okay, it's about the constant suppression of information, and not misinformation, suppression of information. For example,
prove it if that's true. You mean information like dick pics of Hunter Biden? Yeah, you're right. They do suppress that, and they should. Revenge should not exist. It shouldn't be a problem. So yeah, okay, I guess I can agree. They did suppress information. Revenge.
Us, we had Carrie Lake on. Biggest election stream of all time, 2016. They decided we're not going to, 2016 and 2020. They said you're not going to be allowed to do midterms, so it ended up being the biggest election stream off of the platform that is YouTube. That's suppression of information because Carrie Lake had a problem with the voting methodology, specifically in a primary that she won.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what he's talking about specifically. Carrie Lake has been spreading election conspiracies since day one. I don't have any problem with her being removed from YouTube or whatever. I'm perfectly fine with that, honestly. What does that have to do with Hunter Biden's laptop, though? Absolutely nothing.
Removed for that. It's suppressing people who say, you know what, I don't think that keeping children at home for years with COVID is beneficial. I think the net negatives outweigh the net positives.
Wait, keeping children at home with COVID for years is bad? Has anybody been diagnosed with COVID and kept it for like years? I haven't heard about this, first of all. But to be fair to Steven Crowder, it's correct to say that pulling kids out of school and having them do like schoolwork from home had a much bigger impact, a bigger negative impact than anybody expected it to. And it may have been a bad thing. It may have been preferable to hold in-person school and just go with the risks. It really did a number on some kids that they were unable to, be in school and learn from teachers and stuff. I don't know. History will be the judge. We'll find out if it would have been better to keep them in school or not.
In other words, it's not just about the Hunter Biden laptop story. How would the election landscape have changed when you take into account what, at this moment in time, as the election was taking place, there was never going to be a vaccine, according to the DNC. Donald Trump didn't do anything.
Dude, what? There was never going to be a vaccine? What's he talking about? There was a vaccine.
Anything for COVID. It came from a wet.
Hold on.
At this moment in time, as the election was taking place, there was never going to be a vaccine, according to the DNC. Donald Trump didn't do anything for COVID.
When did the DNC say there was never going to be a vaccine? And Donald Trump did some things for COVID, but he did a piss poor job and downplayed it and made everybody think that it was nothing to worry about. It'd be gone by Easter and all of that other garbage. Because of Donald Trump's behavior throughout the course of the pandemic, he lost the election, in my opinion. If he had done a better job on COVID, he would have won the election.
COVID. It came from a wet market.
As far as we know, it did.
The CDC and the WHO were to be trusted, and the Republican Party was.
They are. I mean, the CDC and the WHO, by and large, are pretty trustworthy for the most part. They were working with the information that they had. What's he even talking about? This is more conspiracy theory nonsense. They make a claim, say the lab in Wuhan was working with the coronavirus, and it escaped from the lab. They made that claim with no evidence, and then they scream about it and claim that they were right about it the entire time. What the hell are they talking about? Nothing that they've said has been true. They just claim it is. They make a bigger deal out of it than is deserved, and that's it. That's their plan.
Was a party that was anti-science at this point in time. And, by the way, Joe Biden was, of course, beyond the scope of any type of corruption because no one even knew about Hunter Biden. It's all of it. Now, let's just narrow it down to the Hunter Biden laptop story. And this is a straw man that Jonah Goldberg and David French and these people use. It's a private company. It's not a private company if they're doing the government's bidding. Oh, I don't necessarily know that the Hunter Biden laptop story would have changed the election. It absolutely would have, but we're not just talking about Hunter Biden. That was just the most egregious example in which they were caught. But let's just narrow it down to that. Remember when I say don't
this whole thing is completely made up.
trust the experts? Jonah Goldberg doesn't know his thumb, if you have children, doesn't know his thumb from his dick. Because according to the polls, we've talked about this, you can reference all of these at louderwithcredit.com.
Who the hell did he just say?
17% of Biden voters themselves said they would have changed their vote or not voted if they had known about the laptop story and the contents therein. If you take that into account, this is just the Hunter Biden laptop issue.
Okay, and where did you get this poll from? Is this like some internet poll that like some randos took from some website? I don't even know. Is this poll even real? Who knows? This is very possibly completely made up. But it doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Whatever reaffirms this guy's beliefs, he'll say it. This guy is one of the biggest propagandists alive for the Republican Party. It's absolutely absurd.
Not the Fauci issue, not the vaccine issue, not the mask issue, not the homeschooling issue, not the Ukraine issue, not the Chinese issue, just the Hunter Biden laptop story. Taking that into account, that would have changed Arizona, that would have changed Georgia, Nevada.
According to what? Some poll some online poll or something that you took? Like, I need a little bit more evidence than your word for it. I'm sorry.
Michigan, New Hampshire, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. You just change a little more than half of those, and the election changes. Here's another argument they make. Well, the Dems weren't in control at that time, the Democrats, so it doesn't really matter. They didn't have any power over Twitter. Again, the DNC is the official wing of the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, of course.
Yeah, but it wasn't the DNC communicating with Twitter. It was Joe Biden's campaign, a political campaign, first of all. And either way, it doesn't matter. They were just asking them to remove pics, that's it, of his son. That's not political interference or whatever. It's just completely made up. They desperately want to be the victims in every situation, no matter what.
The de facto representative of the Democratic Party. Of course, it shouldn't only be people who are currently in government, though the DNC encapsulates that too, but people seeking the most powerful role of government, namely the President of the United States. According to Tybee, just to be clear on this, by the way, who's not a conservative, this system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation. There were more channels, more ways to complain, open to the left, far more, meaning Democrats, than the right. This is something, and by the way, keep in mind too, with all this misinformation going out there, and conservatives being suppressed, we need to be able to fight back. Right? So people say, well, why
Conservatives being suppressed. God, they really do have the biggest persecution complex in existence, don't they?
don't you just go create your own Twitter? Okay, well, then maybe they remove it from the App Store. Right? Or what happens is
Okay, nobody has threatened to remove anything from the App Store. This is just completely fabricated persecution. It's made up.
it's no longer searchable, whether it's Parler, whether it's Rumble, whether it's actually Twitter now. Go and create your own. Or you know what? Hey, at the very least, Kayleigh McEnany, she was obviously press secretary.
Yeah.
She was removed just for mentioning the Hunter Biden story. So when you have
I have no idea what he's talking about. This is very likely completely made up. I don't know.
Twitter, who is provided protections under Section 230 as a public utility, and they are removing the people in government who are tasked with ensuring that you receive accurate information, at what point do we say, okay, it's no longer a private entity?
It's like every single word out of the guy's mouth is propaganda. Every single word. And I feel like I'm pausing it every 15 seconds. I am. Every 15 seconds, even less, every 5 seconds, to debunk and tear apart the things that he's saying. But I can't just let some things go. He mentioned something about Section 230 just now. He has no idea what Section 230 is. He has no idea what would be involved in removing it. Donald Trump, during his campaign, came out, or during his, I don't know, his presidency or whatever, started campaigning against Section 230, wanted to have it removed because they censored him. What would that actually practically mean? It would mean not that Twitter was required to let him post whatever he wants, not that it would be basically become like a completely free platform. Removing Section 230 would mean that Twitter can be sued for allowing Donald Trump to put things up. It would mean more censorship, not less. Removing Section 230 would only be retaliation against Twitter for whatever. That's all it would do. And it would hurt the rest of society. But that doesn't really matter. What matters is repeating the lines that the Republican Party wants this guy to repeat 24/7. He is a propagandist, plain and simple. And God, I've never seen it more brazen than with this guy. And with Tucker Carlson, they're both propagandists to the core. It's crazy.
It used to be that the government was in a position of power and they would have strong men in industry, right, to enforce their unfair laws, legislation, right, to enforce what basically ended up benefiting those at the top. It's the exact opposite now. It's the elites in power who are worth far more than these individuals in government who now have the government enforcing their wishes. And it's a quid pro quo. And I ask you, do you feel free? And something else, it's really important to keep an eye, especially as we go into another election, conservatives who concede this territory. We're not looking to be removed from YouTube, but guess what? We're fine with it if it happens. Nothing would make me happier than all of you heading on over to Rumble right now. I cannot force you to. But when you have conservatives going out as apologists for Twitter, going out as apologists for Facebook, or demanding...
I assume he's talking about Bill Kristol coming out and basically saying that, whatever it was he said earlier, I don't remember now. Bill Kristol is an old conservative pundit who was honestly absolutely terrible. Like, really, really, really terrible. Bill Kristol is. He's retweeted me before, though, interestingly enough.
That other conservatives play ball with YouTube and that they make sure that they remain monetized. These things happen, right? And I'm not just talking about David French. We need to keep an eye on that because we need to expect better from people in our movement. We need to be, it's time to storm the castle, and we need to be a battering ram. We can't keep playing this, oh, well, is it a private company? No, it's not. We've proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's not. When Republicans...
Yes, it is. Twitter is a private company. What are you talking about?
Republicans have power. Conservatives have any kind of power. They need some legislative accomplishments or change them, boot them. And that includes people who've been on this show. I'm actually really excited to have our next guest on the show. Before we bring him on here, we're going to have
Right, so now he's going to talk about Alex Jones, because originally I did the Alex Jones bit in the very beginning. That's from part 1. If you haven't seen it, it's absolutely wacky. Yeah, I think we have another minute or two left of this. Keep listening here.
Stinger, and then we're going to have a brief introduction for those of you who missed the interview that had taken place with Ye and Alex Jones. There's so much to get through, and of course we'll be taking some of your questions as we go to Mug Club later on. But just to be clear, hey, can we before we move on with this, just to be clear, please, by the way, hit the share button, hit the Rumble button, hit like, whatever it is.
Oh, because he's persecuted, right? And he needs your help to not be persecuted anymore.
Is Tim that you want them to hit right now for the algorithms? Because YouTube is not going to want you to see this. Just go ahead and pick one. Don't do paralysis by analysis. If I say 2 or 3, he's like, oh, it's like a lion tamer with 3 prongs in the stool. Just to be clear, before we have Alex Jones on and we discuss this topic, do we all agree here? Hitler bad?
Yes, absolutely.
Good,
Okay,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Just there we go.
Absolutely. Hitler
There we go.
bad.
There we go.
Yeah, yeah.
Hitler bad, right?
That's the context.
And none of you are just keeping up appearances.
No. He
We all
really-
genuinely believe
really bad.
that Hitler was a bad guy. You know,
was.
National
Bad guy.
Socialist, disarmed the population.
Yes.
Hitler was not a socialist. He actually sent socialists to work camps, and concentration camps generally.
Big government, progressive.
Right.
Big government progressive. No, he was an authoritarian. And for what it's worth, there was something called the F scale that was created after World War II. I think 1947, created by a guy named, Theodore something or other. I don't remember. Anyways, the F scale was created in an attempt to determine what type of person is likely to support somebody like Hitler. And if you haven't seen this before, I've talked about it a couple of times, so let's just take another quick glance. Conventionalism, conformity to the traditional societal norms and values of the middle class. Sound familiar? Traditionalism? Authoritarian submission, a passive notion toward adhering to conventional norms and values. Authoritarian aggression, punishing and condemning individuals who don't adhere to the conventional values. What is Make America Great Again? What is MAGA? Bring it back to a time when America was great. If that's not conventionalism, conformity to traditional societal norms, I don't know what is. Superstition, religion and ethics, being overly obsessed with religion and ethics and superstition, power and toughness, the alpha male, for example. Rejection of all inwardness, of the subjective, the imaginative, the tender-minded, self-criticism. Destructiveness and cynicism, generalized hostility or vilification of the human. Projectivity, the disposition to believe that wild and dangerous things go on in the world. The projection outwards of unconscious emotional impulses. And exaggerated concern with sexual goings-on. Any of this sound familiar to anybody else? That is like the Republican platform. No fucking joke. You can't make this shit up. That's the F scale, a personality test created by somebody shortly after World War II came to an end to determine the types of people that would be most likely to support Hitler, basically. That's what that was. So anyways, let's keep listening to Steven Crowder here. I wonder where he would fall on the F scale, where he would land on it.
Maybe that too.
Yes.
Yeah. He's a
Bad.
homo.
He's
And by the way,
Have you ever seen Ava Braun? Come on.
one day blew his brains out, I think, after he was married. Didn't take long.
Didn't
It was
last long.
worse than
Dude, I have no idea who or what they're talking about here, but okay.
the war. So let's bring on Alex Jones.
So anyways, yeah, that is Steven Crowder. They're about to do an Alex Jones bit. If you want to see that part, it's in part 1. Just skip to the very beginning. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know if you want to see more stuff like this with Steven Crowder in the comments. That's all I've got for you. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, check me out on Patreon. And let me know if you want to see more stuff like this in the comments. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.